You love your dog. But what if, without even realizing it, you're doing things every single day that make them feel rejected, confused, or alone? And no, I'm not talking about abuse. I'm talking about normal habits, the kind almost every loving owner does. In this video, we're breaking down 9 ways you may be hurting your dog's feelings without knowing it. And stay with me, because the last few are the ones that quietly damage trust the most. 1. Leaving them alone for too long. This one hurts because most people don't mean to do it. It's work, it's errands, it's life. But to your dog, being alone for hours at a time does not feel neutral. Dogs are social animals. In the wild, separation from the group is not relaxing, it's risky. So when your dog is left alone day after day, they may not just feel bored, they may feel lonely, and that loneliness doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's barking and destruction, but sometimes it's much quieter, sleeping more, looking flat, greeting you with less excitement, becoming overly attached the second you get home. That's what makes this mistake so dangerous. It often hides in plain sight. If your schedule keeps you away, don't just think about physical care, think emotional care. Leave enrichment toys, use puzzle feeders, break up the day when possible, and when you come home, reconnect on purpose, because to you, it's just getting back from work. To your dog, it may have been the only moment they were waiting for, and if you think loneliness is painful, the next one can feel even more personal. 2. Pushing them away when they come to you. Imagine walking up to someone you love for comfort, and they physically push you away. That sting matters. And yes, dogs can feel a version of it too. A lot of owners do this automatically. The dog leans in, puts paws on you, nudges for affection, and you shove them away because you're busy, annoyed, or just want space. And of course you are allowed to have boundaries, that's not the issue. The issue is that physical force is a terrible way to explain those boundaries. Dogs are incredibly sensitive to contact, so when affection seeking gets answered with a push, many dogs don't interpret that as not now. They interpret it as rejection. Over time, that can create insecurity, clinginess, or emotional distance. A better option is redirection. Ask for off, guide them to their bed, reward calm behavior, use clarity, not force. Because dogs understand boundaries. What hurts them is when boundaries feel like emotional pushback. But there's another way dogs get brushed off, and most owners miss it completely. 3. Missing their silent pleas. Not every dog communicates loudly. Some ask with a paw on your knee, a soft nudge under your hand, a stare from across the room, sitting near the door, following you and then stopping, looking at you, then looking somewhere else. Those are not random little quirks. Very often, they are requests. Your dog may need to go out. They may want reassurance. They may be bored. They may be asking for play. Or they may simply be checking whether you're paying attention at all. And when those subtle bids are ignored again and again, dogs learn one of two things. Either they escalate and become louder, pushier, and more demanding, or they stop trying so politely. That's why this matters so much. If you only respond when your dog barks, whines, or creates a problem, you may be teaching them that calm communication doesn't work. Start noticing the small signals. Pause before ignoring them. Ask yourself, what is my dog trying to say right now? Because to you, it may feel like a tiny interruption. To your dog, it's whether their voice matters. And what comes next is even trickier because it looks exactly like love. 4. Giving affection at the wrong time. This mistake comes from good intentions, which is exactly why so many people miss it. Your dog is whining, jumping, anxious, demand barking, and your instinct is to soothe them. You pet them, crouch down, and say, "It's okay." But dogs don't think the way we do. They often don't interpret that moment as emotional comfort. They interpret it as reinforcement. In other words, they learn from what they were doing when the affection arrived. So if your dog is frantic, and you flood them with touch and attention, you may be strengthening the exact state of mind you want to reduce. Not because you're bad, because timing matters. That doesn't mean ignore your dog. It means reward the version of them you want more of. Calm gets affection. Settled behavior gets affection. Quiet check-ins get affection. Affection is powerful. Used at the wrong time, it can build chaos. Used at the right time, it can change everything. And if you thought misplaced love was confusing, the next one can make a dog feel like they can't even be themselves. 5. Punishing your dog for acting like a dog. Dogs bark. Dogs sniff. Dogs chew. Dogs dig. Dogs get excited. Dogs investigate everything. These are not signs that your dog is trying to disrespect you. These are natural behaviors. And yet, a lot of owners punish the instinct instead of teaching an outlet. The dog sniffs too long on a walk, so they get yanked. The dog barks at the door, so they get screamed at. The dog chews because they're understimulated, and suddenly they're treated like they committed some personal betrayal. Imagine being corrected over and over for something built into your biology. Eventually, you stop understanding the rules. That's what happens to dogs. The world starts to feel unfair and unpredictable. The better question is not, how do I stop my dog from being a dog? It's what do I want my dog to do instead? Teach place, teach off, teach drop it, give legal outlets, build sniff time into walks. Don't punish the species, train the skill, because if your dog can't understand the rules of your world, trust starts falling apart. And speaking of confusing your dog, almost everybody does this next one every single day. 6. Talking too much. Humans love speeches. Dogs do not. A lot of owners talk to their dogs in full paragraphs. Why are you doing this again? How many times have I told you not to jump up there? There's nothing outside. Stop barking. To you, that feels like communication. To your dog, it's mostly noise with a few familiar sounds buried inside it. Research on canine cognition suggests dogs are much better at reading our tone, body language, and short repeated cues than processing long streams of language. So while you think you're explaining, your dog may just be trying to decode your energy. That's where confusion starts. Too many words, inconsistent tone, mixed body signals. If you want your dog to understand you better, get simpler. Same cue, same meaning, same gesture, same follow-through. Shorter communication is not colder, it's kinder. And if too many words confuse your dog, the next mistake can actively scare them. 7. Yelling at your dog. Almost every owner has done it. You get frustrated. Your dog ignores a cue, chews something up, barks again, and suddenly your voice gets louder. But yelling does not land the way people think it does. Dogs don't hear a lecture, they hear pressure, intensity, unpredictability. Studies comparing aversive training with reward-based training have found that dogs exposed to harsher methods show more stress-related behavior and poorer emotional outcomes. In simple terms, yelling may stop behavior in the moment, but it often creates fear instead of understanding. Some dogs shrink under it, others become reactive. Some stop offering behavior altogether because they don't know what will trigger you next. That is not respect, that is stress. If your dog is doing something wrong, show them what to do instead. Redirect them, mark the right choice, reward the right choice. The goal is not to make your dog feel bad. The goal is to make success clear. And if yelling makes your dog feel unsafe, this next mistake makes them feel unprotected. 8. Not advocating for your dog. This is one of the biggest trust breakers of all. Every time you let a stranger rush up to your dog, every time you force an interaction they clearly don't want, every time you ignore their hesitation because someone says, "Don't worry, I'm good with dogs," your dog learns something. My human won't protect me. That lesson changes behavior fast. Dogs that feel unsupported often become fearful or reactive, not because they're aggressive, but because they no longer trust you to manage the situation, so they start trying to manage it themselves. But the reverse is powerful too. The moment you step in, create space, block a rude approach, or calmly say, "Please don't pet my dog," you become safety, and that changes everything. A dog that feels protected trusts deeper, relaxes faster, and relies on you more. So if your dog hides behind you, freezes, licks their lips, leans away, or looks uncomfortable, listen. Because if you think protection matters, the last mistake goes even deeper than that. 9. Being emotionally absent even when you're physically there. Sometimes the most painful thing for a dog is not being left alone. It's being with you, but not really having you. You're scrolling, distracted, walking past their check-ins, barely noticing the way they look at you. Touching them without really connecting, sharing a room, but not a moment. And to us, that can feel harmless. We're busy, we're tired, We're home, aren't we? But dogs bond through attention, through eye contact, through tone, through tiny rituals of closeness that seem small to us and enormous to them. A soft voice, a hand on the chest, saying their name and meaning it, pausing for a real moment instead of an automatic one. To you, it's just a small moment. To your dog, it's their entire world. And that's the deeper truth behind all of this. Most people don't hurt their dog's feelings because they don't love them. They do it because they assume dogs experience love the same way humans do. But dogs experience love through safety, through clarity, through responsiveness, through whether they feel seen, protected, and emotionally connected to the person they trust most. So if even one of these felt familiar, don't take it as guilt. Take it as a chance to do better. Because your dog does not need perfection. They need a human who notices. And once you start noticing, your dog feels the difference almost immediately.